From the sun-drenched palaces of Athens to the shadowed exiles of foreign lands, the life of King Constantine, the first of Greece, unfolds like a gripping saga of triumph, betrayal, and unyielding ambition. Born as the heir to King George I and Queen Olga, Constantine embodied the dreams of a nation yearning for glory, his name echoing ancient prophecies of revival. Trained in the rigorous halls of German military academies, he rose as a warrior prince, commanding armies in the fierce Balkan Wars, alongside figures like Eleftherios Venizelos, only to face heart-wrenching clashes that tore Greece apart. What secrets fueled his controversial neutrality during World War I, earning him labels of German sympathizer from foes like Kaiser Wilhelm II's sister, Queen Sophia? How did his stormy alliance with Venizelos lead to national schism, abdications, and the devastating Asia Minor catastrophe? Dive into the untold rivalries, royal intrigues, and heroic battles that defined this enigmatic monarch, from his early education under mentors like Constantine Paparrigopoulos to his final days in exile. Uncover the man behind the crown, whose legacy still divides heroes and villains in Greek history. Hit play to reveal the full story. Will Constantine's tale inspire or warn? Subscribe for more epic royal chronicles. Early life and education, 1868 to 1890. Constantine was born on August 2, 1868 in Athens, Greece, as the eldest son of King George, one of Greece, and Queen Olga Konstantinovna of Russia. This birth held profound significance for the young Greek kingdom, established only a few decades earlier, after gaining independence from Ottoman rule in the 1830s. As the first member of the royal family to be born on Greek soil, Constantine represented a tangible link between the imported monarchy. King George I was originally Prince William of Denmark, elected to the throne in 1863, and the nation's emerging sense of identity. The event sparked widespread public enthusiasm, with crowds gathering outside the palace in Athens to celebrate. Ceremonial cannons fired from Lycabettus Hill in salute, and the people spontaneously chanted Constantine as the ideal name for the newborn prince, reflecting both personal family ties and deeper national aspirations. The choice of the name Constantine was multifaceted and carried heavy symbolic weight. It directly honored his maternal grandfather, Grand Duke Constantine Nikolaevich Romanov of Russia, who was the brother of Tsar Alexander II and a prominent figure in the Russian Empire, known for his role in naval reforms and the emancipation of serfs. This connection underscored Constantine's Russian heritage through his mother, Queen Olga, who brought Orthodox Christian traditions and a sense of imperial grandeur to the Greek court. However, the name also resonated with Greek folklore and historical mythology. In popular legend, it evoked the image of a future Constantine XII, the prophesied king who would succeed the last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos, who died defending Constantinople against the Ottomans in 1453. This tied into the Megali idea, or Great Idea, a nationalist vision that dreamed of reclaiming lost territories like Constantinople, modern Istanbul, and restoring Greece to its Byzantine glory. For many Greeks, still grappling with the remnants of Ottoman domination and seeking to expand their borders, the infant prince embodied hope for revival and expansion. He was baptized with the name Constantine on August 12, 1868, just 10 days after his birth, in a ceremony that blended royal pomp with national fervor. On the same day, his father issued a royal decree granting him the additional title of Duke of Sparta, a nod to ancient Greek heritage, though this title was primarily used in international contexts outside Greece to emphasize his heir status. Officially styled as the Diadokos, meaning crown prince or literally the successor, Constantine was marked from infancy as the future ruler. This title wasn't merely ceremonial, it positioned him as the direct heir in a monarchy that was constitutional but often volatile, with Greece navigating internal reforms, economic challenges, and external threats from neighboring powers like the Ottoman Empire. The kingdom under George I was modernizing, introducing railways, expanding education, and fostering ties with European powers, but it remained small and ambitious, with irredentist goals fueling public sentiment. Constantine's early environment was thus steeped in this atmosphere of progress mixed with longing for historical greatness, influencing his worldview from the start. Constantine's family life was rich and expansive, forming a crucial foundation for his personal development and later diplomatic networks. His parents created a dynamic household that combined Scandinavian pragmatism from his father with Russian Orthodox piety from his mother. King George I, born Prince William of Schleswig-Holstein-Sonderburg-Glücksburg, had become a Danish prince when his father ascended as King Christian IX of Denmark, earning the nickname Father-in-Law of Europe due to his children's marriages. George brought stability and a focus on constitutional governance to Greece, surviving assassination attempts and promoting infrastructure. Queen Olga, daughter of Grand Duke Constantine Nikolaevich and granddaughter of Tsar Nicholas I, infused the family with Russian cultural elements, including a strong emphasis on charity and Orthodox faith. She founded hospitals and supported the poor, setting an example of royal duty. Together, they raised a large family, with Constantine as the eldest, surrounded by siblings who would extend the dynasty's reach across Europe. His siblings included Prince George of Greece and Denmark, born in 1869, who became a key political figure, serving as High Commissioner of Crete and famously saving his father's life during an 1898 assassination attempt in Athens by shielding him from attackers. Princess Alexandra of Greece and Denmark, born in 1870, married Grand Duke Paul Alexandrovich of Russia, further tightening ties to the Romanovs, though her life ended tragically in 1891 from complications after a fall. Prince Nicholas of Greece and Denmark, born in 1872, pursued artistic interests as a painter and playwright, later enduring exiles that paralleled the family's fortunes. Princess Maria of Greece and Denmark, born in 1876, became Grand Duchess Maria Georgievna of Russia through marriage to Grand Duke George Mikhailovich, but faced execution during the Bolshevik Revolution in 1919, highlighting the perils of royal intermarriages in turbulent times. Princess Olga of Greece and Denmark, born in 1880, died in infancy at just 7 months old in 1880, a brief but poignant loss that underscored the vulnerabilities, even in royal nurseries. Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark, born in 1882, fathered Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, linking the family to the British throne through Philip's marriage to Queen Elizabeth II. Finally, Prince Christopher of Greece and Denmark, born in 1888, led an adventurous life with multiple marriages, including to an American heiress, and navigated the family's exiles with resilience. Growing up in the royal palace in Athens and summer residences like Tatoi Palace, Constantine shared palace routines, games, and lessons with these siblings. The family spoke Greek at home, as insisted by George III to integrate with the nation, but also Danish, Russian, and English, fostering multilingualism essential for diplomacy. Holidays often involved visits to relatives in Denmark or Russia, exposing Constantine to broader European courts. This interconnected web taught him early about alliances, family ties could secure support, as seen in Greece's reliance on great powers like Britain, France, and Russia for protection, but also rivalries, especially with the Ottoman Empire looming. The siblings' marriages would later create a safety net during the exiles, with homes in Russia, Britain, and elsewhere providing refuge. In this environment, Constantine developed a sense of duty, loyalty, and the precariousness of monarchy, lessons that would prove vital in his reigns. Education for Constantine was rigorously designed to prepare him as a future king, blending academic excellence with nationalist indoctrination. From childhood, the most distinguished university professors were selected as private tutors, ensuring a personalized curriculum that rivaled the best European educations. Ioannis Pantazidis, a leading philologist, taught Greek literature, delving deeply into classical texts like Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, which portrayed heroic kings and warriors, instilling pride in Hellenic heritage. These lessons went beyond reading. They analyzed themes of leadership, fate, and national unity, linking ancient epics to modern Greek struggles for independence. Vasilios Lakonas instructed in mathematics and physics, emphasizing logical reasoning, scientific principles, and practical applications like ballistics and engineering, which would later aid in military planning. This scientific grounding encouraged analytical thinking, crucial for a leader in an era of technological warfare. Most influential was Constantine Paparrigopoulos, the eminent historian whose teachings passionately promoted the Megali idea. Paparrigopoulos argued for historical continuity. Greece wasn't a new state, but the heir to ancient Athens, Alexander's empire, and Byzantium. He detailed the fall of Constantinople in 1453, not as an end, but a temporary eclipse, urging reclamation of Anatolian territories, Crete, and the Aegean islands. These sessions weren't dry recitations. They involved maps, artifacts, and debates, firing Constantine's imagination with visions of expansion. Paparrigopoulos' influence was profound, embedding a sense of mission that blended romantic nationalism with strategic ambition, shaping Constantine's later policies during the Balkan Wars, where he led successful campaigns. At age 14, on October 30th, 1882, Constantine entered the Hellenic Military Academy in Athens, a pivotal shift from palace tutoring to structured cadet life. Founded in 1828, the academy trained officers for the Greek army, emphasizing discipline, tactics, and patriotism. Constantine excelled in drills, horsemanship, and strategy, rising through ranks amid peers from diverse backgrounds, which broadened his understanding of Greek society beyond the elite. Graduation marked maturity. He emerged with command skills and a soldier's ethos, viewing the military as the nation's backbone. Post-graduation, his education internationalized with dispatch to Berlin for advanced military training in the German Imperial Guard, the elite Prussian unit known for precision and innovation. Serving alongside German officers from 1886 onward, he learned modern warfare techniques, infantry formations, artillery coordination, and logistics, influenced by reformers like Helmuth von Moltke. This Prussian model stressed efficiency, rapid mobilization, and offensive strategies, contrasting with Greece's more defensive posture. Constantine's time in Berlin, lasting several years, included practical exercises like maneuvers and guard duties, honing leadership under strict hierarchy. Beyond military, he studied political science and business at the University of Heidelberg from 1884 to 1887 and the University of Leipzig. At Heidelberg, founded in 1386, he joined the Corps Saxo Borussia, a prestigious student fraternity involving dueling, social networking, and intellectual debates among nobility. Courses covered constitutional law, international relations, and economics, analyzing monarchies like Britain's parliamentary system versus absolutist models. In Leipzig, business studies focused on trade, finance, and administration, relevant for Greece's economy relying on shipping, agriculture, and loans from European banks. These years immersed him in German culture, philosophy from Kant and Hegel, progressive governance, and fostered lifelong ties, later labeling him pro-German despite his Greek loyalties. He debated topics like nationalism's role in unification, drawing parallels to Greece's unification dreams, and pondered applying industrial methods to Greek development. By 1890, at 22, Constantine returned transformed, promoted to Major General, a rank earned through demonstrated competence, not just birth, and assumed command of the 3rd Army Corps headquarters in Athens. This unit, responsible for capital defenses and training, placed him in active leadership, overseeing 5,000 to 10,000 troops, planning exercises, and boosting morale. It reflected trust from his father and the military establishment, positioning him as a modernizer. This role culminated his education, merging Greek passion with German rigor, preparing him for future commands like in the 1897 Greco-Turkish War, where initial defeats taught humility, and the triumphant 1912 to 1913 Balkan Wars. Constantine's marriage was a diplomatic cornerstone, blending personal affection with strategic alliance. The romance began in summer 1887 during Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee in London, where European royals gathered. There, Constantine met Princess Sophie of Prussia, Victoria's granddaughter and daughter of Crown Prince Friedrich, later Emperor Friedrich III, and Victoria, Princess Royal. Sophie, born in 1870, was educated in liberal traditions, with interests in art and philanthropy. Their connection deepened, leading to engagement in 1888, shortly after Friedrich III's death from cancer, after a brief 99-day reign. Sophie's mother, Empress Victoria, had reservations about Greece's political instability, frequent coups, economic woes, and its underdeveloped status. But Queen Victoria approved, seeing it as strengthening ties. The wedding occurred on October 27, 1889, in Athens, a grand affair symbolizing European unity. It featured 2 ceremonies: a Greek Orthodox service at the Metropolitan Cathedral of the Annunciation, attended by thousands, with Orthodox rituals like crowning and circling the altar, and a Lutheran service in King George I's private chapel, accommodating Sophie's Protestant background. Athens was festooned with flags, arches, and illuminations. Dignitaries from Britain, Germany, Russia, and Denmark arrived, including Sophie's brother, future Kaiser Wilhelm II. The event cost the Greek treasury significantly, but boosted prestige. Sophie converted to Greek Orthodoxy, adopting the name Sophia, though rumors of residual Protestant sympathies persisted, later fueling political attacks during the World War I. She embraced Greek life, learning the language and supporting charities, becoming a devoted consort. Their marriage produced 6 children, ensuring dynastic continuity amid Greece's turbulent history. The first, George II of Greece, born July 20, 1890, or July 19th by some accounts, at Tatoi Palace, ascended twice, 1922 to 1924, 1935 to 1947, marrying Princess Elizabeth of Romania, navigating exiles, World War II occupations, and Civil War, dying April 1st, 1947. Alexander of Greece, born August 1st, 1893, reigned briefly 1917 to 1920, marrying Aspasia Manos morganatically, fathering Alexandra, later Queen of Yugoslavia. His death October 25th, 1920, from a monkey bite infection was a shocking anomaly in royal history. Princess Helen of Greece and Denmark, born May 2nd, 1896, married Crown Prince Carol of Romania, later King Carol II, becoming Queen Mother to Michael I, enduring divorces and exiles until November 28, 1982. Paul of Greece, born December 14, 1901, reigned 1947 to 1964, marrying Princess Frederica of Hanover, fathering Constantine II, and Queen Sophia of Spain, mother of Felipe VI, steering post-war recovery until March 6, 1964. Princess Irene, born February 13, 1904, married Prince Aimon of Savoy, Duke of Aosta, nominal King Tomislav II of Croatia, 1941 to 1943, living as Duchess of Aosta until April 15, 1974. Princess Catherine of Greece and Denmark, born May 4, 1913, married British Major Richard Brandram, leading a low-profile life with wartime service in the Red Cross, outliving siblings until October 2, 2007. All three sons, George II, Alexander, Paul, became kings, a rare feat underscoring the family's resilience despite abdications, referendums, and invasions. This stemmed from Constantine's strategic marriage, which linked to powerful houses, and the rigorous education preparing heirs for crisis. Daughters' unions to Romanian and Italian royalty extended influence, while Catherine's commoner marriage reflected shifting norms. Early career and challenges, 1895 to 1909. In January 1895, Constantine found himself at the center of a political uproar that revealed the fragile interplay between royal authority and governmental power in Greece, a nation still reeling from its 1893 bankruptcy declaration, which had left the economy in shambles and public resentment simmering over austerity measures. The incident began with widespread protests against new taxes designed to address the mounting debt crisis, where ordinary citizens, particularly the working class and small farmers, felt the pinch of higher levies on essentials like tobacco, wine, and land. These demonstrations turned Athens' streets into chaotic gatherings, with thousands voicing their frustration at a government seen as detached from everyday hardships. Constantine, as crown prince and a major general with a strong sense of military duty, initially approached the situation with a conciliatory tone, stepping out to address the crowd personally. He urged them to formalize their complaints through a petition to the government, a move that demonstrated his belief in dialogue and his view of the monarchy as a mediator between the people and the state, influenced perhaps by his upbringing that emphasized the king's role as a paternal figure in national unity. However, as the protests persisted and tensions escalated, with some reports of minor scuffles breaking out, Constantine shifted to decisive action. He commanded the army troops and the gendarmerie, Greece's paramilitary police force responsible for maintaining internal order, to intervene and disperse the assembly. This operation was conducted with measured force. Accounts from the time indicate no widespread violence or casualties, focusing instead on clearing the streets to prevent escalation into riots that could destabilize the capital further. Yet this decision sparked immediate controversy, as it was perceived by many in political circles as an unauthorized royal intrusion into civilian affairs. Prime Minister Charilaos Trikoupis, a veteran statesman who had served multiple terms and was renowned for his ambitious infrastructure projects, such as expanding the railway network to connect remote regions and promoting public education to foster a more literate populace, viewed Constantine's actions as a blatant overstep. In Greece's constitutional monarchy, established under the 1864 Constitution, the king and his heirs were expected to operate within the framework of ministerial advice, avoiding direct involvement that could be seen as undermining elected officials. Trikoupis promptly lodged a formal complaint, requesting that King George I instruct his son to refrain from such interventions without prior governmental consultation, arguing that it risked eroding the delicate balance where the monarch's influence was symbolic rather than operational. King George I, Constantine's father and a stabilizing force on the throne since 1863, mounted a robust defense, asserting that the crown prince had merely adhered to established military procedures for preserving public order, devoid of any political intent. This response framed the event as a routine enforcement of law rather than a partisan act, aligning with George's own philosophy of a monarchy that supported but did not supplant parliamentary democracy. Despite this, the matter didn't fade quietly. It ignited fierce debates in the Hellenic Parliament, where legislators from liberal and conservative factions dissected the boundaries of royal prerogative. Deputies questioned whether Constantine's involvement signaled a return to more absolutist tendencies, especially in a country where memories of Ottoman autocracy lingered, and where the monarchy, imported from Denmark, was still proving its legitimacy. Trikoupis, already beleaguered by conservative opposition led by figures like Theodoros Deligiannis, and grappling with the economic repercussions of bankruptcy, including international creditor demands for fiscal oversight, found his position increasingly untenable. The scandal amplified existing criticisms of his administration, contributing directly to his resignation shortly thereafter. This episode wasn't an isolated flare-up. It encapsulated broader societal strains in Greece, where economic inequality fueled unrest, and the monarchy's visibility in crises could either bolster or erode public trust. For Constantine, it underscored his proactive, engaged approach to leadership. He preferred action over passivity, a trait honed from his military training in Germany. But it also marked him as a figure who could inadvertently challenge civilian authority, foreshadowing future conflicts in his career. This confrontation with Trikoupis extended into another contentious arena, the proposal to host the inaugural modern Olympic Games in Athens, a venture that sharply divided opinions on Greece's priorities amid fiscal fragility. Trikoupis vehemently opposed the idea, grounded in pragmatic concerns over the nation's precarious finances, following the 1893 default, which had forced Greece to accept humiliating international financial controls and rely heavily on loans from Britain, France, and Russia. Organizing such an event demanded substantial expenditures. Estimates ran into millions of drachmas for rebuilding venues, accommodating international visitors, and managing logistics in a city lacking modern infrastructure. Trikoupis contended that this would be an extravagant folly, siphoning resources away from critical needs like bolstering the military against Ottoman threats or investing in public works to stimulate economic growth. He dismissed it as a sentimental nod to ancient heritage, distracting from the urgent task of constructing a viable modern state through rational policies rather than grandiose symbols that evoked the glory of Pericles or Alexander but ignored contemporary realities like widespread poverty and underdevelopment. In contrast, Constantine emerged as a passionate advocate, embodying the romantic nationalism prevalent among Greece's elite and intellectuals, who saw the Games as an opportunity to reclaim global prominence and affirm cultural continuity with antiquity. This divergence created a direct clash, illustrating fundamental differences in vision. Trikoupis as the cautious architect of progress through incremental reforms, versus Constantine as the ardent promoter of national revival through bold, inspirational initiatives. The political landscape shifted decisively after the 1895 general elections, where Deligiannis, Trikoupis's conservative adversary, known for his populist appeals and emphasis on irredentist goals, like expanding into Ottoman-held territories, triumphed. Deligiannis's victory empowered the Olympic proponents, including Constantine, who aligned with the burgeoning international movement spearheaded by Pierre de Coubertin. Coubertin, a French educator driven by ideals of physical education and international amity, had convened the first Olympic Congress in 1894 at the Sorbonne, selecting Athens as the host to honor the Games' origins. With Trikoupis sidelined, momentum built for the event as a means to uplift spirits in a nation disheartened by economic woes and to draw foreign investment and tourism. Constantine didn't limit himself to vocal support. He assumed a central, active role in bringing the 1896 Summer Olympics to fruition, demonstrating leadership that blended enthusiasm with organizational acumen. According to Coubertin's recollections, Constantine reacted with profound delight in 1894 upon learning of Athens's selection, viewing it as a divine affirmation of Greece's destiny. Far from being a distant patron, as Coubertin had initially anticipated alongside King George, Constantine immersed himself deeply. He eagerly accepted the chairmanship of the organizing committee, a position that entails supervising a wide array of tasks, from refurbishing facilities to inviting participants from around the world, coordinating with foreign dignitaries, and galvanizing domestic enthusiasm through public campaigns. His approach was meticulous and disciplined, drawing on his military background to enforce timelines and resolve logistical bottlenecks in a project plagued by short preparation time, less than 2 years, and skepticism from abroad about Greece's capacity to host successfully. A standout achievement in Constantine's efforts was procuring substantial funding, particularly through his personal solicitation of George Averof, a prosperous Egyptian Greek merchant and philanthropist whose fortune stemmed from cotton trading and banking. Constantine's direct appeal convinced Averof to pledge approximately 1 million drachmas, an enormous amount equivalent to roughly a quarter of the national budget's annual revenue, specifically earmarked for reconstructing the Panathenaic Stadium in pristine white marble from Mount Pentelicus. This stadium, dating back to 330 BC in its original form and partially restored in 1870 for earlier athletic events, was revitalized into a majestic arena seating 50,000, symbolizing the seamless link between classical antiquity and contemporary aspirations. Averof's generosity, inspired by Constantine's persuasive arguments about national honor and legacy, extended beyond the stadium to cover additional expenses, transforming the Games from a potential embarrassment into a lavish celebration. The Olympics commenced on April 6, 1896, coinciding with Greek Independence Day for added symbolism, with Constantine overseeing the opening ceremonies amid throngs of 60,000 spectators in the stadium and more lining the streets. Competitors from 14 countries participated in 43 events across 9 sports, including athletics on the marble track, gymnastics in makeshift halls, and even swimming contests in the chilly waters of Zea Bay, where participants battled waves and cold. Greece excelled, securing 10 gold, 18 silver, and 19 bronze medals, with highlights like the marathon win by Spyridon Lewis, a humble shepherd and water carrier whose victory in 2 hours, 58 minutes, sparked ecstatic national pride as crowds hailed him as a modern embodiment of Pheidippides. Constantine's stewardship temporarily elevated his public image, casting him as a forward-thinking royal who bridged eras, though detractors highlighted the total cost exceeding 3 million drachmas, which intensified economic pressures and validated Trikoupis' earlier cautions about fiscal imprudence. The euphoria of the Olympics was short-lived, shattered by the Greco-Turkish War of 1897, where Constantine's command of the Thessaly army culminated in a devastating loss that profoundly damaged his standing and the monarchy's credibility. The conflict originated from escalating tensions in Crete, an Ottoman island with a predominantly Greek Orthodox population yearning for enosis, or union with Greece, amid recurrent uprisings against Turkish rule. Nationalist societies such as the Ethnike Hetairia, a secret organization of officers and intellectuals promoting the Megali idea of territorial expansion, whipped up public sentiment, pressuring Deligiannis's government to act decisively. In February 1897, Greek troops led by Colonel Timoleon Vassos invaded Crete to support rebels, provoking Ottoman countermeasures and leading to full-scale war by April. Greece's objectives included liberating Crete and annexing parts of Thessaly and Epirus, regions with Greek ethnic majorities under Ottoman control. At age 28, Constantine was appointed supreme commander of the approximately 40,000-strong Thessaly forces, confronting a superior Ottoman contingent of over 100,000 well-armed soldiers, commanded by Edhem Pasha, bolstered by modern German-supplied weaponry and superior supply lines. From the outset, the Greek campaign unraveled due to multiple deficiencies. Constantine's plan emphasized holding defensive positions along the Thessaly frontier, leveraging natural barriers like mountains and rivers. But this was undermined by inadequate preparation. The Greek army suffered from obsolete rifles, compared to the Ottomans' advanced Mauser models, chronic shortages of ammunition and food, and disarray in command structures riddled with political appointees rather than merit-based leaders. Early engagements at Mati and Valestino yielded fleeting Greek victories through determined infantry charges, but Ottoman numerical superiority and artillery dominance soon prevailed, forcing piecemeal retreats. Constantine's orders for withdrawal devolved into pandemonium, with units disintegrating amid panic, abandoning equipment and positions in haste. The pivotal battle at Domokos saw Greek forces mount a valiant defense on high ground, inflicting heavy casualties, but the line ultimately collapsed under relentless assaults, compelling a general pullback toward Lamia. The war concluded after mere 30 days with an armistice mediated by European powers, resulting in Greece ceding small border areas in Thessaly, paying a crippling indemnity of 4 million Ottoman pounds, further straining the bankrupt economy, and accepting Crete's autonomous status under a high commissioner, though still nominally Ottoman, with Prince George, Constantine's brother, later appointed to that role. The repercussions were severe and multifaceted for the royal family. The defeat was branded a national humiliation, igniting widespread public fury that exposed the military's rot and the monarchy's perceived culpability. Constantine faced intense scrutiny for strategic blunders, such as over-reliance on static defenses without sufficient reconnaissance, and allegations of favoritism in promoting fellow royals or aristocratic officers over competent professionals. The monarchy's approval ratings plunged, royal processions met with boos and stones, while press editorials decried the dynasty as out of touch. Within the armed forces, discontent brewed among rank-and-file soldiers and junior officers, who clamored for comprehensive overhauls, shifting to meritocratic promotions, modernizing training and equipment, and stripping royal princes, particularly Constantine, from influential commands to eliminate nepotism's taint. This unrest festered over the ensuing decade, exacerbated by the economic burden of reparations, which necessitated higher taxes and foreign oversight, perpetuating cycles of instability and eroding faith in the establishment. This simmering dissatisfaction erupted in August 1909 with the Goudi coup, a nonviolent military insurrection that fundamentally altered Greek governance. Originating at the Goudi artillery barracks on Athens's outskirts, the revolt was orchestrated by the Military League, a clandestine alliance of mid-level officers, disillusioned by persistent corruption, royal meddling in promotions, and the army's obsolescence since the 1897 debacle. On August 15th, Julian calendar, August 28th, Gregorian, the League proclaimed its manifesto, demanding immediate reforms, professionalizing the military, enacting economic relief for the impoverished, and curbing the monarchy's sway to prevent future disasters. Prime Minister Demetrios Rallis, unable to quell the movement, stepped down, allowing the League to assume de facto control of the capital through peaceful occupation of key sites, without a single shot fired or casualty reported. Constantine and his siblings, Princes George, Nicholas, and Andrew, became prime targets as emblems of the antiquated system, with the League insisting on their ouster from all military posts. Constantine, holding general rank and oversight roles, suffered the indignity of dismissal, retreating to the seclusion of Tatoi Palace in a state akin to internal exile, where the family pondered their future amid fears of republicanism. The coup drew ideological cues from the 1908 Young Turk Revolution in the Ottoman Empire, which had modernized its military and administration, prompting Greek officers to seek parallel transformations to compete regionally. Yet the dynamic shifted dramatically with Eleftherios Venizelos' emergence as prime minister in early 1910. Venizelos, a dynamic lawyer from Crete with a history of advocating enosis and liberal reforms, harnessed the coup's energy to propel his vision, to consolidate power and secure royal cooperation for his sweeping agenda, including revising the constitution to empower parliament, redistributing land to peasants, and revamping the military with foreign expertise from France and Britain. He reinstated Constantine and his brothers within months. This pragmatic reversal aimed at earning King George's confidence, acknowledging the monarchy's residual appeal among traditionalists and rural voters, while Venizelos pursued policies to alleviate debt through tariffs and investments. He frequently sought Constantine's input on defense matters, laying groundwork for uneasy partnerships that would fracture during World War I. Venizelos' leadership heralded a new era. He disbanded the old parliament, triumphed in elections, and fulfilled many Goudi stipulations, such as the 1911 Constitution enhancing legislative authority, army restructuring with imported advisors to instill discipline and tactics, and fiscal strategies to stabilize the economy. For Constantine, the coup served as a sobering lesson in humility, tempering his impulsiveness while priming him for vindication in the impending Balkan Wars, where his command would yield territorial gains. Balkan Wars and Ascension, 1912 to 1913. In 1912, the formation of the Balkan League marked a pivotal shift in regional dynamics, uniting Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and Greece in a strategic alliance aimed at expelling the Ottoman Empire from its remaining European territories. This coalition emerged from years of nationalist ferment and diplomatic maneuvering, with Greece under Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos playing a key role in negotiations that began secretly in 1911. Venizelos, leveraging reforms from the 1909 Goudi coup that had modernized the Greek military with French training and equipment upgrades, positioned Greece to reclaim areas like Macedonia and Epirus, inhabited by significant Greek populations and central to the Megali idea of restoring historical Hellenic lands. Crown Prince Constantine, drawing on his German military education and experience as Inspector General of the Army, was appointed supreme commander of Greek forces, overseeing an army of approximately 120,000 men equipped with modern rifles, artillery, and a nascent navy bolstered by the cruiser Averof. The Ottomans, weakened by internal revolts and the Italo-Turkish War of 1911 to 1912, miscalculated their defense strategy by assuming a dual Greek offensive across the Pindus Mountains, which divided Thessaly from Epirus. They allocated forces evenly, reinforcing Ioannina in Epirus and the passes into Macedonia, a division that left vulnerabilities exploitable by concentrated attacks. This error stemmed from outdated intelligence and overconfidence in their fortified positions, ignoring the League's coordinated mobility. Greek war plans, devised by Venizelos and the general staff, emphasized speed and asymmetry. The main army of Thessaly, under Constantine, would drive northeast with overwhelming strength toward Thessaloniki, a bustling port city of over 150,000 residents that controlled vital trade routes and railroads linking to Central Europe, ensuring supply lines and denying it to rivals like Bulgaria. To the west, a smaller army of Epirus, initially around 10,000 men, less than a full division, was tasked with harassment operations to fix Ottoman troops in place, preventing reinforcements from shifting east. This feint and thrust approach capitalized on Ottoman dispersion, allowing Greece to achieve local superiority where it counted. In execution, the strategy proved highly effective. Greek forces breached Ottoman lines in rapid succession, reaching Thessaloniki within 4 weeks, a timeline that outpaced even optimistic projections and demonstrated the value of post-1897 reforms, which had professionalized officer ranks and improved logistics. The success highlighted how Venizelos' political vision, integrating military action with diplomatic goals, complemented Constantine's tactical acumen, though underlying tensions between civilian oversight and royal command would soon surface. On the Macedonian front, Constantine's command began with the Battle of Sarantaporo on October 9th to 10th, 1912, a gateway engagement that tested the revamped Greek army against entrenched Ottoman defenses. The Ottomans, led by Hasan Tahsin Pasha, with about 18,000 troops, held the narrow Sarantaporo Pass, flanked by steep forested hills, fortified with trenches, barbed wire, and artillery positions designed to funnel attackers into kill zones. Constantine, commanding roughly 40,000 men from the 1st through 4th Divisions plus Evzone battalions, light infantry specializing in mountain warfare, orchestrated a sophisticated envelopment. Under cover of heavy fog and rain that masked movements but hampered artillery spotting, the central divisions launched diversionary assaults to pin the enemy, while flanking units scaled the western heights and Evzones infiltrated the east, using their mobility to outmaneuver static defenses. Combat intensified into hand-to-hand clashes in muddy trenches, with Greek field guns providing close support despite logistical challenges from sodden roads. By October 10th, Ottoman resolve broke. They retreated chaotically, abandoning 29 artillery pieces, vast ammunition stores, and suffering 500 dead, 1,000 wounded, and 963 captured. Greek casualties totaled 187 killed and 1,033 wounded, a favorable ratio that validated Constantine's emphasis on combined arms and initiative, traits honed during his Berlin service. The victory not only opened Macedonia but also demoralized Ottoman command, accelerating their collapse. Immediately post-Sarantaporo, the first major rift emerged between Constantine and Venizelos, exposing the interplay of military logic and political imperatives. Constantine advocated advancing north to Monastir, Bitola, where the Ottoman 7th Corps, around 40,000 strong, was regrouping, offering an opportunity to converge with Serbian allies and annihilate the main enemy concentration, securing Western Macedonia, and preventing Ottoman counteroffensives. This aligned with traditional strategy: destroy the field army to dictate terms. Venizelos, however, insisted on prioritizing Thessaloniki, recognizing its geopolitical value as Macedonia's administrative and economic core, with a Greek plurality among its diverse population of Greeks, Jews, Turks, and Slavs. Capturing it preemptively was essential to counter Bulgarian ambitions, as Tsar Ferdinand's forces were racing westward under vague league agreements that left partitions unresolved. The dispute unfolded via urgent telegrams, with Venizelos emphasizing political considerations of the utmost importance require that Thessaloniki be occupied as soon as possible, framing it as a national imperative beyond pure warfare. Constantine's retort was defiant. The army will not march on Thessaloniki. My duty calls me toward Monastir, unless you forbid me, asserting royal prerogative in operational matters. As war minister, Venizelos invoked his superior authority with a terse order: I forbid you. Constantine complied, but the exchange revealed deeper fissures. Constantine's soldierly focus on battlefield victory versus Venizelos's holistic view integrating diplomacy, foreshadowing the national schism, where such clashes escalated to constitutional crisis. Analysts note this as a turning point, where political direction overrode military judgment, ultimately benefiting Greece by securing Thessaloniki but straining leadership unity. Redirecting east, Constantine spearheaded the Battle of Giannitsa on October 19th to 20th, a grueling contest in the marshy plains surrounding Giannitsa Lake, where Tahsin Pasha had rallied 25,000 Ottomans, plus Bashi Bazouk irregulars, in flooded lowlands ideal for defense. The terrain posed severe obstacles: swamps that impeded artillery and infantry, concealed machine gun emplacements, and incessant rain-turning fields into quagmires. Constantine arrayed his forces in a broad semicircle, the 2nd and 3rd divisions assaulting the center, with the 1st and 4th enveloping flanks, supported by cavalry scouts probing through mist. Evzo night raids disrupted Ottoman outposts, sowing confusion, while dawn barrages from 36 guns softened lines. Infantry advances involved wading chest-deep water under enfilading fire, but persistent bayonet charges overwhelmed positions. Casualties reflected the ferocity: Greeks 188 killed, 785 wounded, Ottomans over 2,000 dead wounded, 1,000 captured, with 41 guns seized. Constantine's adaptations, using pontoons for crossings and concentrating fire on key redoubts, proved crucial, clearing the path to Thessaloniki and demonstrating resilience against environmental and enemy challenges. Thessaloniki's surrender on October 26th, old style, capped the campaign, with Constantine accepting Tahsin Pasha's capitulation of the 26,000-man garrison in a ceremony at the government house, where the Ottoman commander yielded his sword, amid formalities. This occurred mere hours before Bulgarian vanguard under General Todorov reached the outskirts, their delayed arrival due to engagements elsewhere, allowing Greece to claim the city under the League's first come, first served ethos. Entry was triumphant. Troops paraded through streets lined with ecstatic crowds, bells pealing from Orthodox churches as the Greek flag rose over the White Tower. Despite Constantine's reluctance, the acquisition was transformative. Thessaloniki's harbor facilitated resupply, its railroads connected to allies, and its multicultural fabric, 61,000 Jews, 45,000 Turks, 40,000 Greeks, bolstered demographic claims. Politically, it thwarted Bulgarian encirclement of Greek Macedonia, validating Venizelos' intervention, though it intensified interstate rivalries leading to the Second War. The Epirus front initially faltered, constrained by treacherous terrain, jagged Pindus peaks, deep ravines, and winter blizzards, and Ottoman strongholds at Byzani, a fortified ridge south of Ioannina, comprising 20 concrete forts, 100 guns, and miles of trenches manned by Esad Pasha's 35,000 troops. The army of Epirus, led by General Konstantinos Sapountzakis, with 10,000 men, advanced from Arta in October, securing Preveza via amphibious landing, but grinding to a halt at Byzani's perimeter by November. Probing attacks yielded little, as minefields, wire entanglements, and interlocking fire-repelled assaults, with Greeks enduring supply woes and exposure, casualties mounting to 500 without breakthrough. This stagnation reflected the front's secondary status, but prolonged Ottoman resistance risked diverting resources. Completing Macedonia, Constantine relocated 4 divisions, heavy artillery, and engineers to Epirus in January 1913, assuming command and dismissing Sapountzakis for perceived caution. Preparations were methodical. Engineers constructed 150 kilometers of roads for logistics, 200 siege guns, including 120-millimeter howitzers, were emplaced, and aerial reconnaissance via Farman biplanes mapped defenses, a novel use of aviation. Constantine's scheme featured diversions at the center, while flanks scaled heights for envelopment. The Battle of Byzani commenced March 4th to 6th amid torrential rain. With a 150-gun barrage, the heaviest in Greek history, demolishing fortifications over 36 hours, firing 36,000 shells. Infantry from the 1st, 6th, and 8th Divisions surged forward, Evzones infiltrating at night to sabotage wire and seize bunkers and grenade duels. Combat devolved into chaotic melees inside casemates, with Greeks leveraging superior morale and numbers. 50,000 total. By March 6th, breaches forced Esad's surrender of Ioannina and 33,000 troops, Ottoman losses exceeding 8,000 killed wounded, 8,600 captured. Greeks suffered 2,800 casualties. The city's liberation, after 483 years Ottoman rule, sparked jubilation, with 40,000 residents welcoming troops, extending Epirus to northern Epirus, southern Albania, though later contested by Albanian independence. This triumph expunged Constantine's 1897 Thessaly failure, elevating him as national hero through parades and lore, analyzing how Byzani's fall exposed Ottoman vulnerabilities in static warfare against mobile offensives. Tragedy intervened, with King George I's assassination on March 18, 1913, in Thessaloniki. The 67-year-old monarch, strolling unguarded near the White Tower to engage locals in the liberated city, was shot in the back by Alexandros Shinas, a 42-year-old unemployed Greek with anarchist leanings and mental health issues. possibly motivated by poverty or delusion. Shinas claimed George denied him aid, but interrogations revealed alcoholism and instability. George collapsed, uttering, "Take care of the queen," before dying en route to hospital. The act stunned Europe, ending a 50-year reign of stability. Constantine in Ioannina hastened to Athens, ascending as Constantine I in a somber ceremony blending mourning with wartime resolve. Ascension overlapped alliance dissolution, as Bulgaria, under Tsar Ferdinand, contested Macedonian divisions, demanding revisions to Greek and Serbian holdings despite league pacts. Border skirmishes escalated, prompting Greece and Serbia's secret May 1913 Thessaloniki Treaty, a defensive accord partitioning Macedonia along the Struma and pledging aid against Bulgaria. On June 16th, Bulgarian forces attacked, sparking the Second Balkan War, with Romania and Ottomans joining against Sofia. Constantine mobilized 150,000 troops for counterstrikes, commencing with the Battle of Kilkis Lakanas, June 19th to 21st. Bulgarian Second Army, 40,000 under General Nikola Ivanov, fortified Kilkis's hills with trenches and guns. Constantine committed 8 divisions and cavalry, unleashing 80 gun barrages before assaults. The 1st, 2nd, and 10th Divisions charged Kilkis Center amid blazing fields, while Lakanas' flanks turned positions. Bayonet rushes overran lines after 3 days' carnage. Bulgarians lost 7,000 dead wounded, 2,500 captured. Greeks 8,700 casualties, but yielded vast material, fracturing Bulgarian front. The offensive peaked at Kresna Gorge July 8th to 18th, where 60,000 Bulgarians ambushed in the Struma's narrow defile, dominating heights. Constantine's 5 divisions, fatigued from heat and marches, pressed with initial repulses, but countered via night climbs and flanking. 10 days grinding attrited foes, Greeks 10,000 casualties, Bulgarians 20,000, until Romanian advances on Sofia and Ottoman recapture of Adrianople compelled armistice. Venizelos, acknowledging Constantine's prowess, advocated his field marshal promotion with baton, a conciliatory emblem amid tensions. Constantine's zenith arrived, dubbed Bogaroktonos, like Byzantine slayers. He doubled Greece's domain from 64,000 to 120,000 square kilometers via August 10, 1913, Bucharest Treaty, annexing Macedonia, Epirus, Crete, and Aegean Isles, integrating 1.5 million Greeks and invigorating economy. Yet gains bred enmities, and Venizelos' disputes presaged World War I schism over neutrality, where glory's forge yielded divisions cracks. World War I and National Division, 1914 to 1917. The popular perception that Constantine III was a German sympathizer arose partly from his marriage to Sophia of Prussia, who was the sister of Kaiser Wilhelm II, his education and military training in Germany, and his reputed militaristic beliefs and attitudes that emphasized discipline and hierarchy, traits often associated with Prussian influences. This label was further fueled by his close family ties to the German imperial house through Sophia, whose Protestant background and connections occasionally stirred suspicions in Allied circles, even though she had converted to Greek Orthodoxy upon marriage. Constantine's time in Heidelberg and Berlin, where he studied political science, business, and served in the Imperial Guard, instilled in him a respect for German efficiency and strategy, which critics later interpreted as pro-German bias rather than professional admiration. However, this view overlooked the nuanced reality of European royal intermarriages, where dynastic links cross national lines without necessarily dictating political allegiance, as seen in Constantine's own Danish Greek-Russian heritage that balanced multiple influences. Constantine firmly rejected overtures from Kaiser Wilhelm II in 1914 when the German emperor pressured him to align Greece with the central powers of Austria-Hungary and Germany at the outset of World War I. In their correspondence, Constantine expressed personal sympathy for Germany, acknowledging cultural and familial bonds, but he unequivocally stated that he would not commit Greece to the war on their side, prioritizing national interests over personal sentiments. This refusal demonstrated his commitment to Greek sovereignty, yet it did not prevent him from later alienating Britain and France by opposing Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos' repeated efforts to join the Allies. Venizelos, a staunch advocate for intervention on the Entente side, believed it would secure territorial gains in Asia Minor and the Aegean, aligning with the Megali idea, but Constantine viewed such involvement as risky for a small nation vulnerable to naval blockades and invasions. Constantine and his supporters maintained that his insistence on neutrality was grounded in a sober assessment of Greece's best interests, not personal gain or dynastic loyalty to Germany, as accused by Venizelos, who portrayed him as a traitor to Allied causes. This stance was based on military realism. Greece had just doubled its territory in the Balkan Wars, making consolidation essential, and its army, though reformed, was not prepared for a global conflict against superior powers. Neutrality, in Constantine's view, preserved recent gains and avoided entanglement in a war whose outcome was uncertain, especially given the Ottoman Empire's alignment with the Central Powers, which threatened Greek borders. Admiral Mark Kerr, the British chief of the Greek Royal Navy in the war's early phase and later commander of the British Adriatic Fleet, despite his Allied loyalties, sympathized with the king. In his 1920 writings, Kerr described the press persecution of Constantine by Allied media, with few honorable exceptions, as one of the most disgraceful episodes since the Dreyfus Affair, highlighting how propaganda distorted the king's position into outright treason, ignoring his strategic prudence and the constitutional limits on royal power. Although Venizelos, backed by the Allies, compelled Constantine's abdication in 1917, the king retained significant support among segments of the Greek populace, as evidenced by the December 1920 plebiscite that overwhelmingly favored his return, with over 99% approval in some regions. This backing stemmed from perceptions that Allied interventions violated Greek sovereignty, treating the nation as a pawn in great power politics rather than respecting its independence. The schism reflected deeper societal divides: urban, liberal, Venizelist versus rural, conservative royalists, exacerbating class and regional tensions that lingered for decades. When World War I erupted in July 1914, following the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, a constitutional debate immediately arose in Greece between the king and government over foreign policy responsibility in wartime. Constantine faced a dilemma in choosing sides, with his primary concern as monarch being Greece's welfare and security amid a conflict that pitted the Triple Entente, Britain, France, Russia, against the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Ottoman Empire. He rejected Kaiser Wilhelm's initial appeals for Greece to march with Germany, declaring firm neutrality to safeguard the nation from devastation, a decision informed by Greece's geographic vulnerability as a peninsular state dependent on sea lanes controlled by British and French navies. Both Venizelos and Constantine recognized that a maritime nation like Greece could not afford to antagonize the Entente, whose dominance in the Mediterranean through fleets like the Royal Navy would cripple Greek shipping and imports. Constantine opted for neutrality as the optimal path to emerge from the war unscathed, preserving Balkan War acquisitions like Macedonia and Epirus, which had stretched resources thin. This policy aimed at opportunistic gains post-war, avoiding premature commitments that could lead to occupation or partition. In January 1915, the Entente proposed incentives for Bulgaria and Greece to join. Bulgaria would gain eastern Macedonia from Greece, including ports like Drama and Kavala, while Greece would receive compensation in Anatolia from Ottoman territories after victory. Venizelos accepted, seeing it as a step toward Asia Minor expansion, but Constantine refused, deeming it a dangerous gamble that sacrificed hard-won lands without guaranteed returns, especially given Bulgaria's irredentist threats. Constantine vindicated his military judgment after the Allies' disastrous Gallipoli landing in April 1915, where over 250,000 casualties highlighted the perils of amphibious assaults against fortified positions. Venizelos, enjoying popular support and a parliamentary majority for Allied alignment, pushed for Greek participation in Gallipoli, but Constantine, backed by general staff objections from Ioannis Metaxas, a future dictator who argued the operation's infeasibility due to logistical and defensive challenges, vetoed it, prioritizing army integrity over adventurism. Autumn 1915 saw Bulgaria join the Central Powers and invade Serbia, invoking Greece's 1913 treaty with Belgrade. Venizelos urged intervention, mobilizing the army defensively, but Constantine argued the pact applied only to Balkan conflicts, not global wars, and required Serbia to field 150,000 troops against Bulgaria, impossible amid its collapse. Britain offered Cyprus, a long-coveted island under British administration since 1878, in exchange for entry, but Constantine declined, wary of Ottoman reprisals and internal divisions. Venizelos permitted Entente forces to land in Thessaloniki, establishing the Macedonian front to aid Serbia, defying neutrality and infuriating Constantine, who dismissed him for the second time in October 1915. This act breached sovereignty, allowing 150,000 Allied troops under General Maurice Sorel to base there, ostensibly for Balkan stability, but effectively turning northern Greece into an Entente enclave. Germany countered with guarantees for Greek minorities in the Ottoman Empire. During and after the war, in return for neutrality, proposals Constantine considered amid Venizelos's accusations of secret Central Power correspondences, though evidence was circumstantial and often propagandistic. In March 1916, Constantine formally annexed northern Epirus, controlled since 1914 but ethnically mixed with Albanians. To bolster prestige, but Italian and French forces evicted Greeks the following year under Albanian independence pretexts, highlighting Allied disregard for Greek claims. June 1916 brought controversy when Constantine, Metaxas, and Prime Minister Stefanos Skouloudis allowed German-Bulgarian occupation of Fort Rupel and eastern Macedonia without resistance, as a counterbalance to Allied presence in Thessaloniki. This neutral concession provoked outrage, especially in Macedonia, where locals feared Bulgarian atrocities, viewing it as capitulation that ceded strategic border forts and exposed civilians. July 1916 saw arsonists torch forests around Tatoi Summer Palace. Constantine and family escaped injured but unharmed, though 16 perished in flames amid dry heat. Royal circles blamed French agents like de Roquefeuille, active in Athens since 1915, though unproven, leading to purges of Venizelists in the capital. August 1916 witnessed a pro-Venizelos military coup in Thessaloniki, where officers established a revolutionary provisional government of national defense. Venizelos joined, forming a parallel army and declaring war on the Central Powers, controlling half the country, primarily new lands from Balkan Wars, with Allied backing. This formalized the national schism, dividing society between Venizelist Republicans favoring modernization and Allied alignment, and Royalist conservatives emphasizing tradition and neutrality, a rift influencing politics through the mid-20th century. November-December 1916 escalated with Anglo-French landings in Athens, demanding war material equivalent to Rupel losses as neutrality guarantee. Tensions culminated in Noembriana clashes, where royalist epistratoi militias and troops under Metaxas and Dousmani resisted, resulting in 82 Allied and 200 Greek casualties. Allies withdrew, recognizing Venizelos' Thessaloniki government, branding Constantine as Allied enemy second only to Wilhelm. Early 1917, Venizelos' defense government seized Thessaly, expanding control southward. Russia's monarchy fall in March 1917 deprived Constantine of his last Entente supporter, Tsar Nicholas II, his uncle, who opposed deposition. Under Venizelos and Allied pressure, Constantine exiled to Switzerland on June 11, 1917. His second son Alexander ascended as Allies barred eldest George, former German army officer deemed pro-German like his father, ensuring a pliable monarch amid escalating interventions. Restoration in Asia Minor disaster, 1920 to 1922. King Alexander died on October 25, 1920, following a bizarre accident that highlighted the unpredictable dangers even within the royal confines. While strolling with his dogs in the royal gardens, the animals attacked a monkey, prompting the king to rush in to rescue the distressed creature, only to be bitten on the hand and leg by the monkey in the ensuing chaos. What initially appeared as minor wounds quickly developed into a severe case of sepsis due to infection, exacerbated by the lack of immediate aggressive medical intervention. Doctors initially underestimated the risk, treating it conservatively, but the blood poisoning spread rapidly, leading to high fever, organ failure, and his death just days later at the age of 27, leaving the throne vacant and plunging Greece into further political uncertainty amid ongoing conflicts. The following month, Venizelos suffered an unexpected defeat in the general election, a stunning reversal for the charismatic leader who had dominated Greek politics for years through his pro-Allied stance and visionary reforms. This loss stemmed from widespread voter fatigue with his policies, particularly the prolonged military engagements that had drained resources, as well as effective campaigning by opposition forces that capitalized on anti-Venizelos sentiments in rural and conservative areas, resulting in a parliamentary shift toward royalist factions. At this juncture, Greece had endured a state of continuous warfare for 8 years. World War I had concluded, but there were no signs of lasting peace as the country remained embroiled in conflict against Kemalist forces in Asia Minor, a campaign rooted in the post-war Treaty of Sèvres that assigned Greek administration over Smyrna and surrounding regions but met fierce Turkish nationalist resistance, led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Young men had fought and died relentlessly on multiple fronts, from the Macedonian trenches to Anatolian battlefields, leading to demographic devastation with thousands lost and families shattered. Farmlands lay fallow due to the absence of labor, as able-bodied men were conscripted or killed, causing agricultural output to plummet and food shortages to worsen. The nation, spiritually exhausted from years of sacrifice and division during the national schism, teetered on the brink of economic and political collapse, with inflation soaring, debts mounting from war loans, and social unrest brewing in cities overwhelmed by refugees and demobilized soldiers struggling to reintegrate. The pro-royalist parties campaigned on promises of peace and prosperity under the leadership of the field marshal who had triumphed in the Balkan Wars, portraying him as a figure who intimately understood the soldiers' hardships because he had fought alongside them in the trenches, shared their meager rations during campaigns like those at Sarantaporo and Bazani, and embodied the military camaraderie that resonated with veterans weary of Venizelos' ambitious but costly foreign adventures. Following a referendum in which nearly 99% of the votes cast supported his return, a plebiscite marked by high turnout and overwhelming approval in regions like Old Greece and the islands, reflecting lingering royalist loyalties and disillusionment with Venizelos' regime. Constantine resumed the throne on December 19, 1920, arriving in Athens to jubilant crowds but amid deep polarization. This restoration provoked significant discontent, not only among the newly liberated Greek populations in Asia Minor, who feared it would alienate allied powers and jeopardize their security against Turkish reprisals, but also from the British and especially the French, who vehemently opposed Constantine's comeback due to his perceived pro-German neutrality during World War I, viewing it as a setback to their influence in the region and prompting threats to withhold support for Greek claims under the Treaty of Sèvres. The new government resolved to continue the war, inheriting an ongoing campaign that had initially seen successes in western Anatolia against Turkish forces, which at first encountered disorganized resistance from irregular nationalist bands before Kemal's reorganization into a more cohesive army. These early advances included the occupation of Smyrna in 1919 under Allied mandate, followed by pushes inland to secure a zone around the city, capturing key towns like Aden and Bursa through coordinated offensives that exploited Turkish disarray post-armistice, though they also involved atrocities on both sides that hardened ethnic enmities. In March 1921, despite health issues including recurring bouts of illness, possibly linked to the stresses of exile and previous wounds, Constantine landed in Anatolia to boost troop morale, visiting front lines, addressing soldiers directly to evoke shared Balkan War glories, and assuming personal command of the Battle of Kütahya-Eskişehir, where Greek forces under generals like Anastasios Papoulas launched a major offensive against Kemal's troops, achieving breakthroughs through superior numbers and artillery, capturing the towns, and inflicting heavy casualties while advancing toward the Sakarya River. However, an ill-considered plan to seize Kemal's new capital at Ankara, deep in the arid Anatolian interior where there was no significant Greek population to support logistics or provide local intelligence, succeeded only in its initial phases with early gains like crossing difficult terrain and engaging in skirmishes that stretched supply lines. The Greek army overextended across vast distances with lines of communication vulnerable to guerrilla attacks and suffering from shortages of ammunition, food, and reinforcements due to logistical strains and Allied reluctance to provide aid post-Constantine's return, was decisively defeated in the Battle of Sakarya in August-September 1921, where Turkish counterattacks exploited Greek exhaustion, leading to a grueling retreat marked by heavy losses, over 4,000 killed and 19,000 wounded, and the abandonment of equipment. This culminated in the total withdrawal from Anatolia to the coast by August 1922, as Turkish forces advanced relentlessly, sacking Smyrna in September with catastrophic fires and massacres that displaced hundreds of thousands of Greek and Armenian civilians in what became known as the Great Catastrophe. After an army uprising led by Venizelos officers, who held him primarily responsible for the defeat due to his insistence on continuing the offensive, despite warnings from military advisors about overextension, and his symbolic role as commander-in-chief that tied royal prestige to the campaign's failure, Constantine abdicated for the second and final time on September 27, 1922, amid mutinies in the fleet and army units that demanded accountability for the disaster, which had cost over 25,000 Greek lives and led to the expulsion of 1.5 million refugees. He was succeeded by his eldest son, George II, who inherited a throne in crisis as revolutionary committees took control, executing key royalist figures in the trial of the Six, and ushering in a period of Republican agitation. Second exile and death, 1922 to 1923. Constantine spent the final 4 months of his life in exile in Italy, a period that encapsulated the profound personal hardship and isolation he endured after his second abdication, which was precipitated by the catastrophic chaos of the Greek military defeat in Asia Minor during the Greco-Turkish War of 1919 to 1922. This exile began immediately following his forced departure from Greece on September 27, 1922, when revolutionary forces dominated by Venizelos officers and supported by elements disillusioned with the royalist government's handling of the war compelled him to step down amid widespread mutinies and calls for accountability. The abdication was not a voluntary act of resignation, but a coerced response to an army uprising that viewed Constantine as the primary architect of the national disaster, blaming his restoration in 1920 and subsequent decisions for prolonging a doomed campaign that led to the loss of Smyrna and the expulsion of over 1 million Greek refugees. Constantine, along with his immediate family, including Queen Sophia and their children, embarked on a hurried evacuation aboard a steamer, the SS Patris, under the watchful eye of Allied representatives who ensured no royalist counter-coups could be mounted from aboard or upon arrival. This oversight was a humiliating detail, reflecting the international powers' lingering distrust of Constantine, rooted in his neutrality during World War I, which they perceived as pro-German sympathy, and their preference for a more compliant Greek regime to stabilize the region post-war. Upon reaching Italy, the family first sought refuge on the island of Sicily, settling in modest accommodations in Palermo, a far cry from the opulent royal splendor of Athens' Syntagma Palace or the serene estates of Tatoi. Palermo, with its historic Norman palaces and Mediterranean climate, offered a superficial resemblance to Greek landscapes, but the reality was one of stark austerity. The ex-king's residence was a rented villa or hotel suite, lacking the grandeur and security of a sovereign's home. As financial constraints loomed large, royal assets in Greece, including bank accounts, properties, and personal belongings, were seized or frozen by the new revolutionary government, leaving the family reliant on private funds, loans from sympathetic royals abroad, and modest allowances from relatives like the Danish or British branches of the Glucksburg dynasty. Constantine's health, already fragile from years of stress, wartime exertions, and previous illnesses such as the pleurisy that nearly killed him in 1915, deteriorated further during this time. He suffered from recurring bouts of fatigue, possibly exacerbated by heart conditions, and the psychological strain of witnessing Greece's unraveling from afar. News of the Smyrna catastrophe with its reports of massacres and the great fire that destroyed the Greek quarters, reached him through newspapers and letters, deepening his sense of helplessness and grief. Emotionally, the exile was devastating. Constantine grappled with the profound sense of betrayal and loss, separated from his homeland, where public opinion remained deeply divided. While Venizelos and Republicans vilified him as the cause of the Asia Minor catastrophe, portraying his policies as hubristic and out of touch, loyalists, particularly among conservative rural populations, military veterans from the Balkan Wars, and Orthodox clergy mourned his ouster as an injustice perpetrated by foreign influences and domestic radicals. This division echoed the national schism of World War I, where Constantine's neutrality had split the nation and now amplified the tragedy of his fall. Letters and visitors from Greece brought tales of executions during the trial of the Six, where royalist ministers were scapegoated and shot, further tormenting him with guilt and regret. Sophia, his steadfast consort, provided solace, managing household affairs and corresponding with European courts to secure support. But the family's reduced circumstances, living without courtiers, guards, or the trappings of royalty, underscored their vulnerability. Constantine's days were spent in reflection, writing memoirs that defended his actions, and engaging in limited correspondence with exiled supporters, all while the weight of national humiliation pressed upon him, hastening his physical decline in a foreign land that offered refuge but no redemption. Constantine passed away at 1:30 a.m. on January 11, 1923, in Palermo, Sicily, succumbing to heart failure and cerebral hemorrhage, conditions that medical experts of the era attributed to a combination of chronic stress, underlying cardiovascular issues, and the acute psychological burden stemming from Greece's recent national disasters. At the age of 54, his death was sudden yet not entirely unexpected, given his history of health problems. He had endured pleurisy in 1915, which nearly proved fatal during World War I, and the rigors of multiple exiles, wartime commands, and the emotional fallout from the Asia Minor defeat had taken a visible toll. In the days leading up to his demise, reports from family and attendants described acute symptoms, severe headaches that intensified over hours, dizziness, irregular heartbeats signaling cardiac distress, and sudden weakness that confined him to bed. Local Sicilian physicians, summoned to the modest villa where he resided, diagnosed a cerebral hemorrhage, likely a stroke caused by a ruptured blood vessel in the brain, complicated by heart failure, where the organ's pumping efficiency failed under strain. Treatment options in 1923 were limited. Bloodletting, rest, and rudimentary pain relief were attempted, but without modern interventions like anticoagulants or surgery, the rapid decline was irreversible, culminating in his peaceful but agonizing passing in the early morning hours. His wife Sophia of Prussia remained vigilantly by his side throughout the ordeal, offering comfort in their temporary home that had become a sanctuary of sorrow. She held his hand as he faded, whispering words of love and faith, drawing on their shared Orthodox devotion to ease his final moments. The event underscored the tragic arc of a reign that had begun with promise, born as the prophesied Constantine XII to reclaim lost glories, and ended in obscurity, far from the throne he had twice lost. Sophia, who had endured exiles, conversions, and scandals alongside him, faced immediate challenges post-death. Arranging a dignified but subdued funeral in Palermo's Orthodox community, as anti-royalist forces in Greece barred any state honors or repatriation. She was never permitted to return to Greece, a ban enforced by successive Venizelist and Republican governments that viewed her Prussian origins and loyalty to Constantine as symbols of the old regime's failures. Even pleas for humanitarian entry were denied, forcing her to live out her days in exile across Europe, from Italy to Germany and eventually Britain during the World War II. Sophia was later interred beside her husband in the Russian church in Florence, Italy, a small Orthodox chapel built for Russian expatriates in the late 19th century, serving as a poignant symbol of their shared fate in foreign soil, where the gilded icons and candlelit vigils provided a semblance of the Byzantine heritage they cherished, far from the Greek lands they had ruled. Following George II's restoration to the Greek throne in 1935, after a tumultuous decade of Republican rule under the Second Hellenic Republic, 1924 to 1935, marked by political instability, coups, and economic depression, triggered by the Great Depression and refugee crises, he organized a formal ceremony to repatriate the remains of royal family members who had died in exile, a gesture aimed at honoring their legacies, healing national divisions, and reinforcing the monarchy's continuity amid calls for stability. This repatriation was not merely logistical, but symbolic, representing a reconciliation with the past after years of anti-royalist purges and the execution of royalists in 1922. George II, Constantine's eldest son, who had briefly reigned in 1922 to 1923 before his own exile, coordinated with Greek Orthodox clergy, government officials, and international diplomats to transport the bodies from various European sites, ensuring ecclesiastical rites and public mourning to legitimize the restored dynasty. Constantine's remains were solemnly reburied at the Royal Cemetery at Tatoi Palace on November 22, 1936, in a state funeral that drew thousands of attendees, including family members like Queen Sophia, who attended despite her exile status being lifted temporarily, dignitaries from European courts, military veterans from the Balkan Wars, and ordinary Greeks who lined the routes in silent tribute. The ceremony began with a procession from Piraeus Harbor, where the coffin arrived aboard a naval vessel, through Athens streets adorned with black drapes and flags at half-mast, to the Metropolitan Cathedral for a requiem mass led by the Archbishop of Athens. From there, the cortege proceeded to Tatoi, the 10,000-acre estate north of Athens acquired by George I in 1871 as a summer retreat, where the Royal Mausoleum, a neoclassical structure built in 1913 with marble columns and Orthodox icons, awaited. Constantine was laid to rest amid the pine forests and olive groves that he had loved, his grave marked by a simple cross and epitaph honoring his service, where he rests to this day as a site of pilgrimage for royalists and historians, though the palace itself fell into disrepair after the 1973 abolition and suffered fire damage in 2021. Prior to this, from 1923 to 1935, Constantine had been temporarily interred in Naples, Italy, in a simple vault at the Church of San Ferdinando, or a municipal cemetery, arranged hastily after his death due to the provisional nature of his exile and the delay in repatriation caused by Greece's turbulent politics. The initial burial in Naples was modest, attended only by family and a few exiled loyalists, with Orthodox rites performed by a local priest, reflecting the uncertainty of the era. The 1924 proclamation of the Republic under Alexandros Hatzikyriakos and the subsequent instability under figures like Theodoros Pangalos prevented any earlier return. George II's 1935 restoration, following a coup by General Georgios Kondylis and a rigged plebiscite with 97% approval for the monarchy, enabled this act of closure, symbolizing national healing, but also reigniting debates over the monarchy's role in Greece's 20th century tragedies. From birth, Constantine was styled as His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Diadochos of Greece, until his accession to the throne, a title that not only designated him as the heir apparent in the House of Glucksburg, but also carried immense symbolic weight in a nation still forging its identity post-independence from Ottoman rule in 1832. The term Diadochos, meaning successor in ancient Greek, evoked classical heritage and positioned him as the bridge between past glories and modern aspirations, a role amplified by public chants at his birth in 1868, proclaiming him the future liberator of Constantinople. This style was used in official documents, diplomatic correspondence, and public addresses, underscoring his preparatory duties, including military training and state functions, from a young age. On the day of his baptism, August 12, 1868, his father, King George I, issued a royal decree granting him the additional title of Duke of Sparta, a nod to the ancient Spartan kingdom's legacy of martial prowess and discipline, intended to infuse the young prince with historical resonance and appeal to nationalist sentiments dreaming of Hellenic revival. However, this title was employed exclusively outside Greece to navigate domestic constitutional sensitivities. The 1864 Greek constitution emphasized equality and avoided feudal connotations that could evoke pre-independence hierarchies or provoke Republican factions wary of aristocratic privileges. Internationally, it was used in European courts and treaties to elevate his status among royals, such as during his education in Germany or marriage negotiations. He is sometimes numbered as Constantine XII in succession to Constantine XI, Palaiologos, the last Byzantine emperor, who perished defending Constantinople against the Ottomans in 1453, a romantic and nationalist linkage popularized by folklore, the Megali idea, and intellectuals like historian Constantine Paparagopoulos, who taught the young prince about Greek continuity from antiquity through Byzantium. This unofficial designation, though not legally adopted, symbolized aspirations for reclaiming lost territories, like Constantinople and Asia Minor, resonating during his Balkan War victories, but ironically contrasting with the Asia Minor catastrophe under his watch, where dreams of revival shattered. Constantine remains an iconic figure for his supporters, much like Venizelos for his own, and generally for the conservative right. For many years after his death, embodying ideals of military valor from his Balkan War commands, traditional monarchy as a stabilizing force against Republican chaos, and nationalist resilience in defying Allied pressures during World War I, which royalists framed as defending sovereignty. This admiration persisted in conservative circles, military academies, and diaspora communities, where he was celebrated as a warrior king who doubled Greece's size in 1912 to 1913 and resisted foreign dictation, influencing right-wing politics through the mid-20th century, including during the Metaxas dictatorship and post-war anti-communist sentiments. However, today Venizelos' legacy is more highly regarded, lauded for his visionary modernization, implementing land reforms, educational expansions, and diplomatic triumphs that integrated new lands, and his role in fostering Republican ideas that challenge monarchical absolutism, often seen as progressive against Constantine's perceived authoritarianism and pro-German leanings that critics blame for the national schism and Asia Minor's fallout. In popular culture, the royalist slogan Psomi Elia Kekotso Vasilia, bread olives and King Constantine, endures, a phrase that became widespread during the Allied naval blockade of southern Greece, 1916/17, which caused widespread famine by restricting food imports, leading to malnutrition and deaths. It symbolized the simple, austere loyalty of royalists who endured hardship under Constantine's neutrality, contrasting with Venizelos' promises of Allied aid, and persists in folklore, literature, and political rhetoric as an emblem of enduring monarchism amid adversity.